And the funny thing was, when we broke up, she moved into my mum's, and she didn't take it well either. My mum said she was like in tears like every day and stuff like this. And for the first week that we broke up, we would still see her like most days, like pick her up, take her to work and stuff. And then she, after that first week, went like an early Christmas thing, spend time with family and stuff. And at that point, I got cut off. The calls wouldn't be answered, messages wouldn't be replied to, and stuff. And you know, if you think of it's pretty obvious to think about it now. She wasn't dealing with it, she's not getting over it. And it's the same thing I say to anybody now when they're in the relationship. You will not get over that person if you're still in contact with them as a friend. You might become friends again later on, but if you're still in that contact with them, every time you do it, it's like a drug, it's like an addiction. You get someone off alcohol, give them a bottle of whiskey at the end of the week, bang. You know, so if you'll keep seeing them like that, don't get me wrong, if you've both fallen out of love and stuff like this, and you've already become friends before it ends, that may be a little different, but we hadn't, okay? So she obviously did the right thing that was right in the long term for both of us. But this sent me crazy. That's what sent me crazy. And guess what happens? I end up in hospital, having taken over 50 painkillers, trying to kill myself. Woke up in my car, was just drifting off to sleep with Dell playing and stuff, with a policeman banging on the window. Now, I come out, you're probably on a crest of a wave for a day or two. And we get to New Year's Eve. And I'm looking around my flat for somewhere to hang myself. It's probably a good job I don't live in this one with all the beans. No, I didn't live in this one, sorry. Anyway, so it's New Year's Eve, so December the 31st, 2016. I have an ex-girlfriend who's a friend, like at this point, you know, ex-girlfriend from a few years ago, basically trying to get me to go join her in Malta. And she was just there for a few days, and I basically said, look, I can't drop work for you, so I'm like with work, I can't just drop everything and go to Malta. Anyway, the following day, New Year's Day, there was like a terrible bloody storm that you know, like a really bad storm. Everyone's inside, thunder, lightning, rain, etc. And I'm sat there stirring my oats, trying to force myself to go to the gym because I think it'll make me feel better. I speak to my best mate on the phone, and just in passing conversation, telling about the Malta thing. And he turns around and says, Ads, go to Malta because it might save you. He obviously knew the state of mind that I'd been in. He'd been around every day, checking up on me and stuff. Now, that moment, it clicked. I was like, I've got to go to Malta. The thing was, though, it's about 2 hours before the bloody flight by this point, and I don't have a ticket. Now, I ring Ryanair, and they tell me it's too late to get it over the phone, but they do them at the airport up to an hour before. And they ask where I'm traveling from. I said, and they said, oh, sorry, you won't make it. Okay. So I go grab my passport, my bag and stuff, and chuck it all in my car, and I'm fucking off down the motorway in this storm, trying to cover an hour and a half journey in like 45 minutes at 130 miles an hour, because that's what I figured out I needed to travel out to get there in time. Luckily, the roads are empty because it's New Year's Day and there's a storm. You know, when you're in a position where you want out anyway, you're kind of like driving in this state of euphoria. And I 360'd the car twice, ended up in the barriers. It's weird actually, because like I know nothing about cars, but there'd been this like warning light on for a while. I think it's like ABS or something. Airbags didn't go out or anything. Obviously relating to that light that I paid no attention to. The weird thing is I 360'd the car twice at 130 miles an hour. I landed in the barriers and I was absolutely fine. And guess what happens next? I turn the key and the engine starts. I don't even get out of the car. There's loads of warning, like loads of noise going off and like lights flashing and stuff for a few seconds, but I reverse and I'm driving again down the road towards the airport. And I get to like the point where it's like that, they said the last moment where they said I'd have to get the ticket, and I'm still like 15, 20 minutes away. So I'm ringing Ryanair again. Is there anything you could do? No, turn around and go back. So I carry on driving to the airport. I get to the airport and I dump my car, still don't even look at it, and I just run inside the airport. I dump my car out the front of the airport, run inside, and I speak to the first person or member of airport staff that I can see. And they go speak to the Ryanair desk. They say, basically, you can get a ticket, but you need to do it now. Where's your car? I'm like, this first time I see it, as I turn around to point out the front of this smashed up Mercedes just outside. They're like, okay, they'll do you a ticket, but you're gonna have to check in now. So anyway, I get it back in the car, drive like an idiot again, go park it, get the transfer bus back. People let me in front of them in the queue and I get given this ticket. And then I get on the plane. And as I'm on the plane, I'm sat there looking out the window. And as Mark, you remember when I gave this talk, I actually have a photo that I took at the time of that window. And something just hit me. It wasn't actually when I got to Malta, it was when, as soon as I got on the plane, something profound just hit me. Like, the first thing I thought was, you're a fucking idiot. But then it was like, you broke up that girl in the first place because it wasn't right for you. You've gone crazy. You should be dead right now. You have the most beautiful, amazing life where you do what you want for a living. And you've been trying to kill yourself just because of a girl that you wanted to break up with anyway. And that's nothing, that girl's amazing, by the way. Like, we had issues that it was right for both of us. But the main thing that really, really hit me then was just a massive feeling of gratitude for just being alive and noticing how frigging beautiful it just looked outside that window. And I was still in England. But the other thing was that feeling that you should be dead and you're alive for a reason. And it's because you can really, really help people on this planet. And what I was feeling, experiencing at that time, I didn't understand like the concepts behind it, but I was just feeling this constant like gratitude. It's like your heart had kind of opened. My values changed because from that moment on, I felt how my life was such a blessing. But the way that I kind of would feel about other people and my own values in what matters most to me shifted from seeing my muscles in the mirror or seeing the photos of someone else's physique that I've transformed to the email that they'd write you saying, Adam, you've changed my life. Like, thank you. Like, when I started, I was really unhappy, and now I absolutely love my life, and that's down to what you've been doing. You've given me so much confidence. And that kind of stuff, every time I read it, and still to this day, just makes me cry. And it's you know, what I live for, and that shift occurred. And you know, this doesn't happen, but their physique could not change over the 12 weeks. But if they were happy at the end of it, that's what mattered. Because before, I would be like, yeah, you do have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do cardio. Like, no, you can't go out and eat with your family because you're on this diet. But then there's a massive shift. And it's just, I wanted people to be happy. Because why? Because in December 2016, I was really unhappy. The most unhappy you can be, but still be walking on the planet. Void. Happiness. Adam's mum, best friend. So this here, when you realize, or when your values changed and you want to make people happy, I'd spent 12 years by this point, spending all my time working in and studying, training in nutrition. I've hardly done that since. I mean, don't get me wrong, if there's something new that comes up, of course I look at it. There's not much more that you can learn, you know, you're that obsessed with it for that long. But do you know what I have been studying since? This new path of understanding emotions. Why the hell was I wanting to like kill myself here? And then within the space of 4 hours, with nothing else actually changing, I was the happiest person on the planet. What had gone on? And it meant that I started to chat to people, clients on the phone, just because their dads died or because they broke up with their girlfriend or what have you. I wanted to help, and I started to quickly realize I was pretty damn good at it, because I was starting to understand what happened in my brain through this. So guess what that does to me as a coach? Yeah, of course, the objective changes slightly. You start to get more people coming to you because they want to feel happy in life. So I was still just as good at it, if not even better though, because I still had that bit that I was doing before, but now there's a whole new dimension to it. I'll change the name of what I do from transformation coach to like physique-based life coaching at that point. Anyway, it's all bloody amazing. So let's move on, shall we? We you know, obviously this, we're not going back too far here, so we'll running out of space. But what was it, 2018 I first spoke, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Which was also a pretty profound time in my life, because I think it was 2 weeks before Ellis called me to talk about speaking for the first time. Another relationship ended that I'd been in for the year before, for a year. Okay. That relationship was one of those toxic ones. And it's funny because it's one of those ones, you know, where your friends are all like, oh, don't you two get back together again. Oh, not again. You know, those ones. But you always end up doing it. I was so blinded by love with this girl that I didn't realize everything that was going on at the time. And the way that it ended opened my eyes to stuff with that relationship with how she was as a person, but how I was too. I realized that I'd been in a year-long psychological battle, but I wasn't actually playing the psychology. And there was other stuff that I actually felt hurt by at the end because I couldn't help with stuff. Because when I say like I didn't realize it, like I'm not a fucking easy person to be with because I'm obsessed with my work. So I'm not going to make out that one of us is good, one of us is bad. It's not that at all. But I was completely oblivious to some psychological aspects. And it hurt. Now, don't get me wrong. I've been through this before. Had I not been through this and started to learn and understand emotions, I may have gone down here again. But it still touched me. Now, can you guess what this does then? So we have another void. By the way, let's say March. Sorry, I'm scribbling, but it's more so I can refer back and go over things as well. March 2018. By the way, guess what was happening towards the end of this relationship? By the way, during this relationship, this girl, just like the one before, couldn't understand why Adam's mum didn't like really, didn't even, not take care, but like, why does your mum like that with you? Like my mum would sometimes tell me to go out and get a real job. Like, you know, I'm doing bloody well at what I do and what I love. I'm like the top of my field, and my mum still doesn't think it's a real job. So this girlfriend couldn't understand it either. But guess what happens towards the end of that relationship? Adam's mum, best friend. So at the end of this relationship, there's another void coming. I felt, true or not, I felt I lost out in a psychological battle. Can you guess what I've become bloody amazing at since then? And I'll say that because I'll also admit the stuff, there's loads of stuff I'm really bad at. Have you heard me sing? You know, but the stuff that there are certain things that I get obsessed with things. And I have to learn everything. Like we're on lockdown today. I've gone out and bought psychology books and stuff. You know, so like, because that, while everyone else is buying like food and everything, I've got some food as well, but yeah. Anyway, psychology becomes a massive, massive value in my life. And guess what happens when you start to become really good at psychology, emotional intelligence? What's starting to transition with my work? I'm doing a life coaching course by that point, or I started there. Over the course of the last year and a half, my coaching has gone from 90% writing training and diet plans to 10% writing training and diet plans and 90% Skype consultations, phone consultations, helping people with emotional issues and stuff that they're dealing with. And sometimes it might even be understanding things about themselves to help them find a new career path. You know, people that I've helped like transition from jobs that they're pretty good at, but they weren't being fulfilled by them. So I've helped them find the things that they love in life and transition to go on and do that. People come to me now for that, not necessarily to look good. And it would be absolutely wrong of me as well to go through all of this and to not say one other very big thing, an important person along this path as well. Because a lot of this stuff, whilst I've like developed it and built on it a lot of this stuff comes from, well, actually first the ancient Greeks, but that I got set onto that path by somebody else. It's Dr. John Demartini, who obviously Will has had speak at his event. As soon as this happened, and I got set on this path of psychology and everything else, bang, I'd already been discovering all this stuff about myself because I'd seen it in my own life. And then suddenly I read this book by John Demartini and I'm like, this is what's been happening to me for the last few years. it was just presented in a way that was just so clear and understandable, and it was a science to it. Now, when my values already gone up here and I discovered this about human behavior, guess what I do? I buy every bloody book. I read them within about a week. I'm on his course, get mental by him and everything else. And then it's a bit, in a way though, it's a bit like, I love Oasis and I friggin' love the Beatles. So it's like I discovered Oasis and then I found out about the Beatles and went back and studied Greek philosophy and stuff. The point of this is, I'm going to relate it to all this stuff back here and what's going on right now. What have we got here? 1996, a massive, massive negative, okay? It's led to what I do for a living, a massive positive, and became extremely good at it. What have we got at 2012? Sorry, 2016. Massive negative, huge negative. I've helped hundreds of people become happy as a result and not let them have to get here, because I've stopped them here and bring them up here. And I say that because I will do whatever I have to do it. And again, I'm bad at a lot of things, but like, I obsess. I don't switch my brain off. It just doesn't happen. And that's why I'm able to do this without prepping it. So, and that can be a very bad thing as well, trust me. It's not always a good thing. So, 2018, end of that relationship, we have a bloody negative, not like this, but it's a negative. Psychology, John Demartini work. Wow, suddenly there's a science to all this stuff that I've been going through. Massive positive. The Big Bang. Everything around us is an equal balance of positives and negatives. You're going through challenging one area of your life, you're getting support from Adam's mum. The war, 60 million people died. God knows how many lives are saved as a result of all the stuff that's come after it. So it's not even just, it's in each moment there's positives and negatives, i.e. during the war, think how much the people pulled together, how much more love and respect there was for everything that we had, how people's values changed, how wisdom increased. So even during it, you're having these things happen, i.e. during it, Adam's mum becomes his best friend through these times. Now, right now, we're all going through something bloody huge in life. And you know what's going to come out of it at the other end? Something friggin' beautiful. There's going to be challenges because there's a balance. And these challenges write bloody science. And you can't defy science. So when I go back and you look at the title of this talk, How to Eliminate Fear, Stress, Anxiety, the perception of an event that's going to have more negatives than positives, it doesn't exist. And when you've been through this, how can you feel fear, stress, or anxiety? Because whatever happens, you know, is serving you in some way, shape, or form. Now, we're human. And in fact, the time I actually get stressed the most, and the difference is how quickly that disappears. The things that might have stressed me out for months before will be like 5 minutes now. The thing that stresses me out the most sometimes is that I get stressed over the fact that I shouldn't be feeling stressed over something because of the way that I think and view life. And then 5 minutes later, I've collapsed it because I've realized where the positives are coming, how it's going to serve me. And you're back to a balanced state of gratitude and love. Depression. What's depression, guys? Let's bring everyone back in. If they're not all asleep or...
Well, let's unmute everybody. Everyone can join in.
What is depression, guys?
imbalance of serotonin in your brain?
What causes an imbalance of serotonin in your brain? It's not genetics.
Reactions, your emotional response to the things around you.
Yeah. So what emotional response are you having if you're like feeling sad or disappointed, and that can obviously lead to depression? What emotional response are you having?
A negative emotional response.
Yeah, it's a negative emotional response. You have a perception that you've gained something that has more negatives than positives, or you have lost something that had more positives than negatives. Guess what we call that? A fantasy. Depression is the expectation of a fantasy because there is nothing in life that has more positives than negatives. There is always an equal balance. So when you're depressed, it's because, why is this happening to me? Okay, well, you write down that event that has happened to you, and you think, write down 100 reasons, ways that that event is serving you as well, or going to serve you. And if you can't do that because sometimes you don't see it until the future, then you go back over every single event in your life that you think is bad, because my events have been so big, I didn't have to do this. But now I can think back now to any apply this to anything. But like I was forced to realize this by life, because these events were so big, I was forced down this path, whether I wanted to go there or not. But the fact is, you can think back to any event in your life in the past, and no matter how bad it was at the time, you would not be there here now without that event happening to you. It's going to have served you in some way. So, you know, we would not be here talking through a computer, wearing clothes, through the internet, had early human man 200,000 years ago not had issues. So the way to deal with like depression is not to take medication, because I have clients who are on medication for this stuff, and my mission from the start is not to transform their physique, it's to get them off their depression medication, and we do it. Because what they have to do is not what therapists do, give sympathy for something, which can actually encourage it more. I'm not saying, you know, therapists have a role, they do great things in some instances. It's not to let it go and be done with it and move on. It's to say, I'm actually really bloody glad that happened to me, and I'm thankful that it happened. I'm grateful it happened, because if that thing hadn't have happened, I would not be where I am now and have everything that I have right now. And when you can apply that, because we can't feel depressed about something we don't have experience. Like a baby can't be depressed. It's all born from our experiences, these connections that we've created in our brain. So when you've gone back and changed all of those connections to a state of balance, you're not going to feel depressed because you know something's serving you. You're not going to feel fear about stuff that might happen because you know all those other things that have happened in the past have actually served you. I think I've done, guys.
Thank you very much, Adam. I think that's absolutely
questions.
Amazing. Anyone? I'll unmute those in Zoom again. If anyone's got any questions for Adam there.
Adam, it's Emma. I just wondered what book it was that you'd read.
The first DeMartini one?
Yeah.
Breakthrough Experience is the first one. That's the one I would always advise anyone starting with as well.
Cool. Thank you. Great talk, by the way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else, or are we just going to give Adam a big online?
I have a little finishing thing that I have to say. There's no more questions for you.
Yeah, go on then, Adam. Off you go.
Okay, so I know it's been emailed to people anyway.